Welcome to the podcast. This is Julian, and today I have an amazing guest, Tim Walters. Tim, welcome.
Hey, Julian. Thanks for having me.
For sure. So we're kind of talking a little bit off air about your thumb.
Mm. Oh man, yep, the thumb. Well, here's the visual. If anyone's watching, there you go. You can see that
Yeah,
happen.
that was actually the first question I asked him, and I'm pretty sure that was like the I don't know if that was the best icebreaker he ever received before. It's just like, I don't know you, but can you show me your thumbs?
Yeah, it's very apropos. I was just on the phone talking with my spearfishing provider. I'm getting a new spear gun, so for my upcoming spearfishing trip in a couple weeks. So excited about that, and to not lose any other digits. Keep it. Learn the lessons, right? You got to have the experience and learn the lessons, and then apply the lessons, right? Which is a big part of entrepreneurship, of
Yes.
life, of business, of adventure, of all of it. Right? Is learning, anticipating the learning, anticipating the decisions, and then applying. So yeah, excited to be
I think
sharing.
that's one of the things that I loved about. So I finished your book, which I love. As soon as I saw All In, I'm like, there it is. Because the name of my coaching is Relentlessly All In, right?
Really
Which
nice.
yes, which is literally just because I talked about being all in, but then relentlessly all in, which is this continued pursuit of being all in,
Yeah, I
inside
like
of
that.
all domain of your life, your relationship with, your spouse, your kids or your partner, your business, your calling, your purpose, your body, but it's
Yeah,
always being all in versus saying that you're all in.
you're right.
But then and when you have real people that are all in and you tell them you're all in and they're like, that's not what all in looks like.
Right, right. A lot of people talk a big game, but it's one thing to talk. It's another thing to take action, right?
So
So
tell me about all in for you. Like, what does being all in mean?
all in to me means being fully committed and aligned with your highest values in your life, and then taking the action to align with those highest values, right? And so, like you said, we all have different things that are most important to us, right? We have family, we have business, we have the people we surround ourselves with, whether those are friends or colleagues. We have those experiences in life that bring us vibrant, feelings of feeling fully alive, in a variety of different, situations. And for me, it's seasons of the year, right? There's things that shift. Depending on the season, there's different ways that I approach that. But, the all in concept is really just having the clarity and the commitment and the action that is all aligned to really, really feel like you're living a life you can be proud of. That's
Mhm.
the essence for me. Yeah.
I wanted to wear a shirt that said, "The man, the myth, the legend," and wear it just for you. Because I felt that literally it's, one of those where you become a legend when you have enough stories to tell, when you have things that you've lived through, like experiences and you've had
Yeah.
many, many, many from the tsunami to the rock climbing and almost dying to your thumb almost disappearing to going deep deep water fishing and with waves that are coming in and just a bunch of different lifetime it feels that you've gone through.
Yeah, it's interesting in our just before we started talking about, mortality motivation and this concept of, no one's getting out of here alive, right? We are all going to pass at some point. When that is, is hard to tell, but writing the book was largely the impetus was, I had two of my best friends die in adventure experiences, and they were my lifelong, uh, climbing partners, primarily. And it really, really, uh, was the impetus for me just wanting to share my stories, partly in honor of them, but also to help people think about how to make better decisions,
Hmm.
even when you haven't had the experience. Because there's this concept in mountaineering, for example, like you learn from experience, and then you're able to take that experience and then make better decisions. But what if you don't have the experience? How do you avoid those, potential disastrous consequences if you don't have the experience, right? And
Right.
so you have to. What I came to the conclusion on is, in this work and all my corporate leadership training and all the things that I've been doing with my business and entrepreneurship, is that you have to have a process.
Right.
And if you follow a process, then you're going to be able to evaluate the things that you're going to need to determine to make those decisions in advance of having the experience. So that was a big part of it, was, sharing the stories and the things that have, gone wrong. And, people say, hey, is this like the best of your, the last 30 years of your life of adventure? And I'm like, no, it's kind of like the worst of, because it's like, I chose the stories because there's thousands of other stories of
Sure.
like the beautiful day and the perfect climb and this and that. Right. But no one wants to hear that. It's like, no, these are the things that were the lessons, the things that went wrong. And so I found those, that's the most useful. People want to learn from the mistakes that others have made, and the successes, and what was the formula for success, right? A big part of entrepreneurship and creating any experience in your life is pattern recognition, right? And
Hmm.
identify those patterns and repeat those. The same thing goes for not making mistakes or having accidents, or at least, minimizing risk, right? So yeah, yeah, that's a big part of it. And the the higher the level of this whole thing with the mortality motivation is around, like, what do you want your legacy to be?
Right.
And, for a big part of entrepreneurs that start a business and they want to create a lifestyle and have an impact on society, that's also a big thing, right? Like, what do you want your story to be when you're gone? And so I think that's a big thing that entrepreneurs often think about, right? Why are we doing this in the first place? So, yeah.
That's
Anyway,
that's beautiful. No, I mean, I always say that entrepreneurs are the modern day warriors. The difference between a warrior and a soldier, right? Like a soldier, I'm just following instructions and I'm like just semi, where the warrior has a bigger mission. There's something bigger that he's pursuing that sometimes people don't understand, you know?
yeah,
But it's like it's yours. It was your given. That's your calling. You can call it calling, but if you look in the sense of warriors, like this is where you're going. And you understand that at any moment, the warrior knows at any moment he can die. And therefore he approaches life on like, why are you trying to stay safe? What's the point of life? Go through it and then push the limit and push the limit and push the limit and see the edge of the plate. I'm sure people like with you, I have 6 kids. Like I know that's the edge of my plate.
yeah, yeah. I
You
can
know?
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the edge of our plate, right? Been
Hmm.
in business for about 13 years. You've been, I think Grand Dynamics is going 28 this year,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So almost, yeah, more than double. And so like you've gone through the many stages of entrepreneurship of like I'm borrowing money and then now I'm doing great and I have to borrow more money to do this and I'm paying this money and more money and then the team gets bigger and then the different moments where you ask yourself like what is the calling? The remembrance of the calling,
Yeah,
you know? And,
yeah.
and I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, you're the warrior concept. Arno Ilgner wrote the forward in the book,
Yes.
and he has a book called The Rock Warrior's Way, and that's the psychology of rock climbing, right? It's the mental training for rock climbing. Everyone People tend to think about that pursuit as a largely physical one, and that's a necessary component, just like it is in life, health and wellness. But it's the psychology, as it is in business, in my opinion, that differentiates the people that are successful and those that are not. The people that tend to have the staying power, the capability of reframing and experience a failure, losing the bid. Oh, this thing that I thought was going to happen didn't happen. How am I going to pull myself together and move on and make a better decision? And I think each person is individual in their calling and what it is that they feel compelled to do. And so how that comes to fruition is very unique for each person. But the motivation, um, is the driving force that keeps us going, right? When things are difficult. And, oftentimes, you heard the whole, begin with the why, start with the why. My concept that I've come to believe in is stacking the whys. It's never just
Yeah.
one thing, right? And so you may have a big picture vision of wanting to change the world or bring a new product or service to help people in a certain way or make life better or whatever that might be. But deep down, there's a lot of different motivations behind something.
Mhm.
And the more that you can stack those, right? Like an exercise, like write down as many reasons why you started your business, why you want to continue business, why you want to do the things in 2026 that you are deciding to do, right? And then it becomes more clear the what, like the actual actions that you're going to be taking, because oftentimes, the entrepreneur begins their business with wanting to have, a lifestyle, right? A lifestyle choice. Time freedom is probably the biggest one I hear from entrepreneurs. It's like, why do you want to? Oh, I want to have more free time. And oftentimes it's the opposite, right? You get stuck like having to, work more than you thought and solve all, other people's problems, which are ultimately your problems because you're the boss.
You're
Or
the main
it's,
one. Yeah.
so to me, by going through this process, and I do it twice a year, really. I get really clear on my values for the coming year. Have those changed from the last 6 months? I do it, right around the new year, and again in the springtime, towards the end of April. It's when my birthday is as well too. So I kind of have landed on those two time periods. But I think like it's not just one thing, right? We're always evolving. We're always our motivations are all changing. Your kids are getting older. They're changing their ages. That's going to change your motivation. They're going to have different, um, things that are important to them that you want to align with. Your business size and the environment's going to change. So how are you going to change your product or your service? Um, and it's always an evolution, right? So
Yes.
the motivation is always changing, and the more we can align and be, close to that. And there's different ways for different people. It's you can write things down, you can go for walks, you can meditate, you can pray. Some people are, have that mechanism. And it's very unique. So whatever it is for you or whoever's listening, um, doing that more often, I think, is a proactive, practice that I think is very, very important. And so that's my opinion. And when you're deep in a difficult situation,
Yeah.
right? Like in the challenge experiences, in the environment that when you're pushing your limits and you're at the edge, it's that's going to bring you through, like why you're doing it in the first place and finding something deeper than just to get the other side of the lake or to the top of the mountain. I mean, that's not really what any of this stuff is about. It's not really the mountain summit moment. That's like a 2-minute thing out of a, 24-hour time period if you're doing a
Yeah.
big alpine ascent or something, right? So it's all about the process that gets you there. So differentiating that outcome versus process, I think, is also another element of the why. So
I
anyway,
love it. Yeah. I think I was like going through your framework that you had, with like the why, second the why, and then just being able to go down. I was just like, it is simple, but it's like the process of doing it. Right. And even I think inside of the book, which I love, you had at the end every time what the lessons were. Right. Because sometimes you go through the experiences, whether that's ayahuasca, mushroom, whatever, but the integration is where the growth happen. And after
yeah,
time, people go through the experience and forget that the integration
mm,
is where the growth happened. The experience, you're going to go through it, just like life. You're going to go through it. And sometimes it's by default or sometimes it's by decision. But if you don't have the integration, which is
yes,
either that process, for us, side of coaching, we call general's tent, where we go and we review, okay, what worked, what didn't work,
yeah,
what can we do better? And then the action for the next week, which here,
hmm
like you get to the experience, you debrief what worked, what didn't work, you get your lesson, and then the next time, can we do better? Is there. So I had a question for you regarding emotional regulation. Because I feel inside of all the things that you've done with the adventures and those experiences, how do you there's moments where your nervous system can just be out of whack so fast because there's fear, which is just really physical reaction to things, and your ability to regulate yourself allows you to, one, not burn fuel, two, stay positive on the outcome, three, remember this is the why we're doing it versus allowing the negative thoughts that want to creep in,
Yep.
that will creep in.
Yep.
So how do you, for yourself and also through the experiences you have with like corporate, how do you guys do it to be able to help people regulate their nervous system?
So I have 3 tools for you in that regard. The first is the pre-frame, right? So you can anticipate the scenario that you're going to get in, right? So if you're going into an important meeting, a big board meeting where you have to make a sales pitch, you can anticipate some of the questions that are going to be coming to you that might make you uncomfortable, and going through that process of determining when are the heightened emotional states that you're going to that you can see yourself experiencing in advance. So you can visualize those in advance if you take the time to do that and prepare, and even prepare your response. So
Yep.
you imagine getting into a fearful state and then determining your response in advance. I do this a lot with cold immersion, actually, is one of the main practices. Like you look, you're standing, in your shorts in 10-degree temperature outside in the freezing cold, looking at a freezing cold river, and visualizing, literally looking at yourself in the water and imagining yourself breathing calmly in a very, very difficult situation.
Painful.
And that practice,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, some people might call it painful, but it's actually different than pain once you are able to have that type of an experience.
Right.
But the point, the point is, if you can anticipate the emotional waves that you're going to likely go through, that's going to allow you to prepare yourself to respond versus react, right?
Right.
And what I call like the cold immersion, it's like leading the response. When you get in the cold water, you're going to be hyperventilating and like gasping. So what do? You actually go through and you breathe rapidly initially to lead the response, so
Mm,
that your breath actually controls your mental focus, and then it allows your body to respond. And so you start with the rapid breathing and you control your breath into slow movements and slow, deeper breaths into a deeper, more, channeling the inner fire. And then that allows you to get through that difficult situation. So the same thing applies in business, and you can anticipate difficult financial situations. How am I going to manage this financial investment that I'm going? If this goes the wrong way, what am I going to do? If
yeah.
I'm going to have a difficult conversation with one of my employees, I can imagine the response that might come forth. So that's number one, is the pre-frame. Number two is the breath, which is, there's the Western philosophy, which you can look at all the different science behind, what, effective breathing does, about belly breathing, full breaths, box breathing, different sequences elicit different emotional responses. If you have a difficult, time falling asleep at night, you follow one particular pattern.
Yep.
If you want to be more confident in a situation going into it, you have another breathing pattern. If you want to be relaxed for a, 80-foot free dive down for spearfishing, you're doing another breathing pattern. You're going to take another type of breath before you actually dive down into the thing that's different than what you did the 2 minutes before. And so there's all the science behind the breath work, right?
Yes.
The
100%.
Eastern philosophy is more about the prana, right? Is accessing your energy source. And that is more of a spiritual game, right? And so the more you get in tune with the different types of breathing methodologies that you can deploy in certain situations, the more you're going to be able to emotionally regulate your response. And so that aspect, I mean, if you know, it first became very, very apparent to me in alpine mountaineering and the approaches of, difficult climbs before the climb even started, to maintain your energy. And you're looking at physiology and certain types of breath. If you regulate your breath, like even when you're jogging, the moment that your breath moves from calm and relaxed into it's more difficult to breathe,
Yeah.
that represents a shift in your energy system from moving from
Mhm.
fat burning to mixed fuel to sugar. At a full sprint, how are you breathing versus when you're walking and very calm? You're accessing different energy
Yeah.
sources. That's going to tell you how much endurance you have for whatever the thing is you're doing. And so the more you can stay aware of when am I shifting, because there's certain moments like in climbing, for example, that you're going to need to exert more effort than the rest of the time. And so if you can anticipate that and say, okay, 10% of my time on this particular climb, I'm going to be climbing something very difficult. I'm going to need to, conserve my energy for that particular
Yeah.
point. Then you can prepare yourself. So whether it's meditation, walking meditation, you're doing, for free diving, breath work training, we do CO2 tables, which is really, it's just about, anyway, so there's different methodologies for different types of training experiences, that I, practice, right? And so now, like leading up to this spearfishing adventure, because of this time of year, I go into breath hold free dive training, right? And that's different than my cold immersion breath work that I do, and the Wim Hof method, which is retention breathing, right? Which is all about pH balance and alkaline and preparing yourself for the cold. So the breath, that's the second one. The third one, and this is one something that I uh, became aware of when I started having some just recurrent thoughts. Have you ever had a situation? Maybe it's a problem you haven't solved, an open loop. Maybe it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
relationship question. Maybe it's a business question, whatever it is. But your mind starts going into loops, right? And so these questions keep coming, or a thought, right? And the question is, does that thought serve you for what it is that you're doing in your life or business? Sometimes it's useful because you're seeking an answer to something, and that's okay if you give that the time that it deserves, and you're consciously deciding it. But when the thoughts become too repetitious to that they no longer serve you, you need something to be able to interrupt the pattern. And
Yes.
I just do what's called blow it up. So imagine you have like a rocket or a missile or like a ball of fire or something, and you have the thought. As soon as you recognize that thought coming in, imagine this ball of fire coming in and blowing that thought up, just eliminating it. And then in its replacement, you have a more empowering thought. And you can actually think about these thoughts that come into your mind and say, here's the thought that's coming in. This is what I would rather have. Next time this happens, I'm going to experience something. I'm going to blow it up. I'm going to replace it with this. And if you do this often enough, then the thought will just go away. It will stop happening, and you will start having the other thought, which is really about psychology and anchoring, and it's just like kind of a personal tool that I use. So a little bit
I
long
love
winded
it.
to your question, but yeah.
Mhm. I love that you put breath work in there. I think breath work, I just recently got into breath work, probably about a year and a half ago,
Hmm.
as in breath work every day, the different type of breath work and understanding the power of
Hmm.
it. And because again, especially as an entrepreneur and especially me with like, those that I coach are male entrepreneur dads, so you have multiple stressors
Yeah,
happening in a lot of different direction, right? The kids, the wife, the business, and then all that is requiring you to lead. But if you're not, you know, um, regulated, then it's hard to make the decision at all those different places from a grounded position versus a
absolutely.
reactive. You're attacking
Right.
me, boom. You're attacking me, boom. And then unintentionally hurting the people that you care about.
Yeah, very well said. Yeah, and it's important. I mean, and it's never. It's a lifelong pursuit, right? This is why we practice these things, because no one's perfect. You know, you're gonna have the reactions that you learn from. There's gonna you're gonna need to apologize for things that you said, and
Fair, yeah.
we're all human, right? But it's just that's relationships can be a great mirror to help us understand ourselves and to be a little more loving and bring our best selves to whatever the situation is. So yeah, I appreciate that you're investing that time and focus and into that particular. Has it helped you? Let me ask you
Yeah,
that.
oh, 100%. You
Yeah.
said something that I wrote it down because so last year was probably one of the hardest year in my life. I had in January of last year, I almost had a panic attack. And I never knew what a panic attack was or anything like that, right? I'm about to be 40 in a couple of months. And so that was 39, right? And it was exactly that. It was a problem that I couldn't solve. And I just got stuck in the loop. And it was probably 11 o'clock PM. And I was just there in bed while I was sleeping. Our 2-year-old was sleeping, and I was just there, and it was just like, and I couldn't get out of it. And I start to feel like my heart, and even to the point of like, oh shit, I'm going to die. And I'm like, this is stupid. This is a stupid way to die. This is a
Yeah.
stupid way to die. And then I, remember one of the things that I coach men, which is it's we call it stacking. I know it's kind of you say stacking with your wife. So it's stacking. And so you go to a system of you stop, right? You like stop where you at. Instead of continuing the thoughts and trying to troubleshoot, you just stop where you at. You submit to the real facts about where you are, and then you go into struggle, which is the reframing, understanding that there's your current stories, there's another story, go to the opposite of it, right? Go to your desired story.
Right.
And so you can start to see different perspective, because after time when you're stuck inside of a loop, you are literally only seeing one perspective. You're not seeing the possibilities. And as
Right.
entrepreneurs, we thrive on possibilities because we're like, oh, I can do this, I can try. Like, and you start to see where there's energy that is pulling you. And then
Hmm.
eventually you go into the strike, which is the action. What action am I taking? It's not just mental masturbation. I'm like, there's just thinking, thinking, thinking. It's like, no, I'm actually going somewhere. Here's the actions that I'm going to
Yeah.
pursue. And that
Hmm.
allow me to come back down. But that experience I was like, wow, I really need to spend more time with the breath,
Mm.
more time with it, so that I can understand that if I can regulate myself, I'm going to be able to traverse those moments where the entrepreneur mind is just going so many different directions.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so that was the one, the loop. That was huge. To blow it up, I'm definitely going to use that. I'm big inside of everything warrior, right?
Mm.
It's just like that analogy, and just fire, and allowing the fire to forge you versus burn you, and also allowing you to not being a dragon at home. And part of the work that I do with men is just allowing them to understand that, especially if you're a dynamic leader has a unintentionally hurts his family, because what makes you dynamic, which is the charisma, the talking, the posture, does not translate the same at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Yes.
at home, you become the opposite of that. The where you are when you're client facing, business facing, all the success you have because of the charisma, the dynamic that you are. Now at home, it's not received the same way, because your wife does not want the coach, the speaker, the whatever. She wants steady, because
Yeah.
she's gonna go to her mood. She wants steady,
Yeah.
and then your kids are gonna be the same, right? Like with 6 kids, I changed it to expression. Instead of like, wow, like it's crazy energy. I'm like, wow, look at all those expression. Because I believe like we're here to express, right? We're God's expression here to just express whatever is alive in us. And so all the things that our kids want to do, whether it's the yelling, the making a mess or whatever, is just their expression. And all
Mm.
the expressions are acceptable. But there's obviously different places to,
Yeah.
to express those.
Right.
Like we're
Right.
not gonna express, fighting like in school all the time. Like we're going to Muay Thai. This is where we're gonna go and express like the anger versus at home to your siblings, and but to blow it up, like I would definitely going to use that one because I have 4 boys and 2 girls. So I have a lot of fire energy in my house of wanting to, to fight.
Right.
So that's beautiful. So I know we hadn't quite talked about it, but I feel like people at this point are like, okay, so what does Tim do? So I'm going to say, Tim, how do you make money?
By adding value. That's how you
I
make.
love it.
Yeah, yeah. No, so yeah, my background is in corporate adventure training, right? So I take experiential training and development is the construct, and so we work with corporate teams, corporate business teams, executive teams, you know, teams of all different sizes, and we put on corporate events and corporate experiences, and so those take the form of keynote speaking, seminars, a lot of outdoor adventure experiences, and multi-day retreats. And so we work with, YPO groups, corporate groups, sales teams, all sorts of different, uh, you know, I guess functions of in corporate America. Ultimately, we serve the business leaders to help them tap into the potential of their employees and the people that are aligned with their mission and vision and values for that particular business. And so we're in the human side of tapping into people's potential, and we do that through creating largely adventure experiences, outdoor, indoor, largely challenge experiences,
Yeah.
right? So, and the challenge comes in different ways. So there's physical, there's team challenges, there's mental challenges, there's spiritual and emotional. And when we create like an all-in retreat, for example, we integrate all these different elements. So you have the psychology, you have the emotional intelligence aspect, you have the team and the communication and all the interactions between people, and the communication that's required, the vulnerability, really,
Mm.
the
Mhm.
disclosure and sharing and being open, asking for help and helping each other and these types of things. And then the leadership development is the primary thing. So getting people to think about how to lead teams of people and lead businesses, and all those elements that come into leadership, right? Which is the capacity to inspire a shared vision, right? And to get people to align and to really be bought into the purpose behind the mission of the company. Like, why are you doing what you're doing for whatever the
Yeah.
service or product that you're
Yeah.
creating? And to get people to go beyond, right? Like every CEO wants to optimize their performance of their people, right? Like ideally, anyone that's involved in your company, you want to have people fully bought in and doing whatever it takes by any means necessary to achieve the objective that you're seeking. And so when we put on our retreats, for example, I have a team of people. We have a large group of contractors, and we have, depending on the event that we're producing, the people on my team are just fully looking at the outcome of how are we going to inspire and engage with these people and connect them, and
Yeah.
so that when this experience is over, that relationship they have is at a deeper level that's going to allow them to have better
Rich.
communication and trust and speed of business and performance. And then individually, they're inspired to really be fully engaged and committed and all in the thing that they're doing, right? And when people can leave with that, then that is how they're going to add value, and that's how they're going to be showing up in life. And the more we can do that, then trying to ultimately make the world a better place, right? Um,
That is beautiful.
so
It's
so
like,
yeah, that's that. Grand Dynamics is my company, and yeah, you can see all the different frameworks. We put on like amazing races, which are really like you need to do all these different, very unique challenges in unique places, whether it's downtown Boston or in Jackson Hole, where I'm headquartered. We put on cave rescue simulations. That's one of our big ones.
that's cool.
That's really come with that's outside of Nashville, and in a cave, the only cave system that's in uh that has a concert venue. Have you ever heard of the Caverns outside of Nashville? Super cool venue. So we take groups to Nashville and go to the Caverns, and we put actual search and rescue simulations on that is aligned with the Thailand cave rescue. And so we have elite, PJs, military PJs that are part of the program that were actually involved in facilitating the rescue in Thailand. And
Yeah, tsunami one.
Josh Morris, who's actually in the um, the rock climbing and tsunami chapter of the book. He was actually in the middle of the whole, Thailand cave rescue, facilitating that decision, whole big story. And so we have themed retreats around, moving from the darkness of the cave to the mountain summits. We have mountain seminars with all these themed mountaineering concepts around, the rope and the what are your summits and all these different metaphors for mountain climbing. So we take very unique experiential challenges and integrate them into a very cool environment, whether it's Zion or New York City or Boston or Jackson Hole, Wyoming, um, and create experiences based on the location. We have another one recently. We just kicked off the year at a place called Rough Creek Lodge in Texas, and it's outside of
Oh, it's my
Dallas.
hometown,
Really?
Texas. I mean, Houston, Texas. So,
Yeah. Yeah, go Texas. So anyway, that resort was super cool. What we just delivered there, it was an all-in theme, and I was excited when you told me, yeah, I'd listened to your whole book. I was like, wow, this group all showed up having read or listened to the book, and people have a framework where they're ready, right? They're like, what are we going to get into based on based on these stories that we've heard, and they're corporate, right? So we create challenges that anyone can go through, and people have choices as to how challenging they want to make it for themselves, but you provide the opportunity for people to have this aha moment, right? Like
yes.
in
Mhm.
some point, and leave with that spark of, you know what, I'm going to change this, or I'm going to do this. Is this how I want to show up in life? And largely it's around psychology. If you can get people to start thinking a little bit differently, based upon like a catalyst of an experience, um then you're winning, and so that's my dream in life, is just creating these experiences that are going to inspire and empower people, and giving them tools as well, right? So there's different.
I think you're doing that. Like just
Yeah.
the book, like you inspired me to, I have a fourth book that I wrote, but when I was finishing the book, there's something I guess inspired. It's kind of inspired action from listening to you, and that's kind of the name of. I don't know if you can see it or not. Name of the book, Strong
Strong.
Enough to. Yeah.
Yeah. Strong enough to feel, strong enough to lead. Oh, steady enough to lead. Nice.
Yeah. And it's pretty much just about like why the best leaders regulate their emotions at home before they lead in a conference room. Because I
Nice.
think that sometimes like you have that gap there is like corporate wants to be able to have you as the employee to be able to be maximized while they're there. But the reality is just like if your home life is a mess, it is very hard to be able to show up with full power because you're just leaking energy. You're leaking power at home.
Yeah.
If you have
Yeah.
a roommate of a wife, it's hard to show up at work and because you're consistently thinking of the problems back at home. If you have a something with your son or with your daughters that don't want to talk to you, it's still an unclosed loop that is there.
Right.
And so your nervous system coming into work is not regulated. And therefore your decision making is going to be bad.
Right.
You're going to show
Right.
up as a leader. You're not going to be able to receive and really listen to people when they bring their own problem to you because you're going to be like, I have my own problem at home. I can't, like, what do you want me to do about your problem? You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And so there's a disconnect there. Um, and so I love that. So we're going to go to some rapid fire question.
Okay.
And then we're coming towards the end of our time. So those, I'm giving you the question and you giving me couple line answers of it. Okay.
Brief answer. Yeah.
What's most misunderstood about adventure-based leadership and experiential learning? What is the most misunderstood?
That it has the capacity to have a dramatic impact when done.
Okay. When you work with leaders who push limits professionally, where do you see that the same disconnect show up emotionally or relationally? So those that are pushing professionally, when do you see the disconnect happen emotionally or relationally?
When people don't tell the truth.
I love that. That is the first thing that I would have with coaching is just like tell the fucking truth. That is going to be the first thing. And this is a safer space to say the truth. not the one with additional spices on it or the one with information removed from it.
Yeah. That is that's it may seem very simple, but that's the foundation of it in my experience. Like you got to be real, and you got to have a space in an environment that's created by the leadership to allow people to do that. And there's a lot of complexities, particularly in corporate America and leadership teams and ego and all the rest. That at the core is telling the truth.
I think this one you're gonna love. What's the difference between someone who endures pressure and someone who actually grows from it?
The person who focuses on the learning.
There we go. What does it reveal about identity that most men never see in a boardroom or strategy meeting? Talk about adventures.
Say that one more time, the beginning of it.
So this is about adventures,
Huh?
right? What does it
Uh,
reveal about identity? So whenever they go to those events and those challenges, what does it reveal about identity that most men never see in a boardroom or strategy meeting?
uh, the humanness, the aspect of of who we really are. You're in your rawest form when you are at your limit, when you are deeply reliant on a partner, and you overcome something that is extremely difficult. And that, to me, at its core, reveals the most human, spiritual, connected uh, thing that's part of life. And so that's largely why I've sought out a lot of these adventure experiences to get to that deeper sense of understanding oneself. And that's why I continue to you know pursue uh my potential in these realms because of that. Yeah, the deep human factor.
Yeah. And so my last one is, when are you doing a desert adventure? Or have you done a desert adventure?
Well, I like going down to Zion and going canyoneering, and that's a big one, but, on my list for 2026 is the rim to rim to rim on the Grand Canyon, so that, I'm intending, depending on how my knee, kinda progresses over the winter, we'll see, how the ultra running evolves, but I'd like to do that, in May of this year, is do the rim to rim to rim, so
That's
that would be
beautiful. I
yeah.
had before I called, like I had this, I was, doing my breath work and stuff, and I had this vision of a poster of you like this, with showing all of the different um things that had happened to your body, all the different adventures that happened to your body, from the nose to the fingers to the knees to the back to the hip to the face. They had one like that done for Allen Iverson, at the end of his
Yeah.
career, of like all the different surgeries and stuff that he had. And I'm like, man, that would be amazing for Tim to be able to have that. And like, look, this is life lived
Yeah,
fully.
there you go. I mean, look at Lindsey Vonn. Come on. I mean, talk about all her surgeries and coming back and redefining what's possible with just the injuries, right? Now World Cup, she's gonna be, I mean, it's amazing. Like that story. But yeah, all the, things are gonna happen, but I don't regret one moment of any of it, and, I feel great at the moment, so we'll keep it going. Um, I did wanna mention one thing that you mentioned, like, last year being a difficult year, and I think that might be the case for a lot of people. There's been a lot of uncertainty, a lot of sort of tumultuous, energy that's been going on. I think we would all probably agree to that. Same thing for me. And it's interesting, I've been looking at the Chinese calendar. I don't know
Mm,
if you've heard anything about this, but apparently it's been the year of the snake. And the year of the snake represents shedding of
shedding,
all
yeah.
the skin and going through these changes and moving on into
Fire
the
horse,
the horse,
the horse,
right?
right?
And
Yeah.
kind of moving on. So I'm going with that theory,
No,
because we've had a lot of similar things,
I
and it's
agree with you. I think in part of like, just the work that I'm doing and such, is the ability to come in and speak the truth and share. And sometimes it can feel like overshare for some. But for me, my view is that if I'm able to share with you really what happened, then now you realize that, like, oh shit, me too. And you
Yeah.
realize that we actually mirror of each other. That
Yeah.
there's yes, we might be in different walk of life, but at the same time, we're going through the same thing. Like I remember we do this, what's working, what's not working. And I share with the group, I'm like, well, January I almost had a panic attack. April lost 10% of revenue because our next gen athlete decided to do something new. July, my oldest son trying to commit suicide. And my wife and I kind of went to like a separate living situation for a little bit. I'm like, all that happened within the same year. I'm like, if I didn't have breath work, if I didn't know how to regulate, how could I possibly lead?
Yeah.
How could I possibly not pick up bad habits?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because it's very easy for entrepreneurs, where I think you talked about that a little bit, like how easy it is to fall down into the depression and get into just, drug, alcohol, porn over anything because you're the main guy that everybody's looking at. And we know that business is energies, it's energetic. Yes, there's all the strategy, but if you as the main person
Yes.
energetically
Yep.
are not regulated and you're not centered and grounded, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what strategy you have. Money is gonna disappear. People are gonna disappear. Contracts are gonna disappear, and you're gonna be like, "What in the world?"
Yeah. Absolutely. I think thank you for sharing that. I mean, entrepreneurship, business is a spiritual game, and it is energy, and everything comes from your energy, the intentions you put out there, how you communicate, the confidence. The leader's job is to provide certainty in an uncertain environment. And everything is uncertain, and so that's your job with your family, with your kids, with whatever it is, with the adventure you're going on. Like, go with, provide some certainty, and be that person. And so the self-regulation, all the things that we're doing proactive, the health and wellness things, that, the taking care of ourselves to show up for other people and ourselves, so important. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and your podcast is so great. And the messaging and the importance of family first, it's amazing. You're doing great work. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim. So, if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the
Yeah.
what's the best way? Where do you want to send them?
They
What's the next
can.
step you want them
Yeah,
to take?
yeah, granddynamics.com is the website if people are interested in kinda just curious about, that type of training and development for employees. That's that business. They can go to All In Adventure Stories, that'll bring them to our website with some of that stuff, and find the book on Amazon. It's on Audible as well,
And it's
and
Tim
then
reading it. There's something about having the author actually read his own book versus getting AI or or somebody else. There's that
yeah.
energy behind it that I really love and honor you for that.
Yeah, I think my book was the last book ever written before AI was utilized. It took me 5 years to write the thing. So, yeah, yeah, checking out the book. People can send me an email, tim@granddynamics.com, if they wanna just shoot an email or have a question, directly. That's cool. And otherwise, yeah, I got Instagram, all Tim Walther, all in on Instagram, and LinkedIn is good for business connections. So yeah, just find
That's
me on
awesome.
there.
But Tim, I just want to say thank you. I want to honor you for your work, for your energy, for your light. You didn't have to say yes to be here, but I always believe that there's no coincidence, that life is going to bring the right people at the right time, and so I honor you for being here. Thank you for inspiring, through your work, through showing what's possible. Because I think whenever you listen to some of your stories, I think even the last one was like one that hit me maybe the most out of all of them, which is the one where you're waiting for people to be there and thinking of the grand celebration is going to be there and there's nobody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like it is very much feels like sometimes entrepreneurship. You have this grand image or picture of like, once I finally do it, people and then you're like, wow, there's actually and so it's understanding this place of self-love and worthiness outside of achievement. There's nothing, and I think sometimes men we get stuck there, just like the more I achieve, the more I should be worthy of love. And if I'm not achieving or my business is not doing good, I don't want people around me because I'm not worthy of it. Um, and that really got me to that place of like, yes, like this place of if you can feel, you can heal. And you have to be strong enough to allow yourself to stay in the emotion so that you can feel it, and then you can lead in a steady way. So I honor you and thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, that ending part of the story, and it's so important for entrepreneurs to remember and for people to, just keep things in perspective, so, yeah, appreciate you, thank you for finding me, and, best of luck with all of your endeavors and living all in.